Okay. So I said I was going to make a video that was a little bit longer, talking a little bit more than just like the rush 90 seconds of the reel. So here it is. It's going to be the same day even. First and foremost, I want to say, look at my background. I got it fucking put together. Isn't it cute? Yeah, this was all stuff that was in a different room in my apartment, and then I switched rooms, and so now it's over here. You can see my little Smurfs record player I got for Christmas next to a Smurf record. There's also a little Smurf that needs to go on top of it that's just not gotten put in here yet, but anyway, I just want to acknowledge that because I think it looks great, personally speaking. It's my girly room, that's what I call it. It's got like the kittens and the hearts and the butterflies and the flowers and stuff in it. So that's where I do my makeup now. So, and my piano's also in this room. But moving on, let's talk about those vocals on that new song. First and foremost, I think I got very nervous going into it because people were talking about, oh, it's auto-tuned, oh, it sounds different, and you're right, it does sound different, but I don't think it's because of auto-tune. I personally, I'm not an expert on anything, and I want to clarify that very quickly, but I absolutely love learning about more music things and hearing the differences and stuff. So what I think is going on is he's singing in a slightly higher register than what we're used to hearing from him, and I love that. Don't get me wrong, I love the gravel, I love the deep, I love the dope show kind of vibe, and that sounded so bad, I'm so sorry, but that we're all stars now kind of a vibe, you know what I'm talking about, where it's very deep like that and gravelly, and I love that, but I love also how he switched it, and he's now a little bit higher. First off, that's gonna fit so much better in my vocal range, but so I can sing it in the car better, but overall I also think it's really cool. I also love it's a little bit smoother, that it's a little bit smoother as well than what we're used to. Manson's vocals have always been smooth, but they've been a little rough, and I think it's a little smoother and not quite as rough as what we're used to hearing, which is also cool. Again, not shitting on any of his other stuff because I love Manson. I've loved Manson since I was 15. I'm 22 now. It's been 7 years, baby. So, but, yeah, I think that is very cool. I think maybe he might be working with a vocal coach. Very common in the industry. Like Till Lindemann has done that before, which is totally fine because all it does is just enhances what you already have vocally. And I think that's kind of what's going on. I can't 100% say, oh yeah, that's for sure what he's doing, because I don't know. But if not, cool beans. I also think it might have something to do with him getting sober and working a little bit more on himself. And you tend to sound better when you're in a better place health-wise sometimes. And I think that's really cool. If that's the case, awesome. But I think there's a lot of things that could go into it, and I really kind of am leaning towards the vocal coach kind of vibe, but who the hell knows? But anyway, just to clarify, I don't think it's auto-tune, and I think 100% that it's Manson. I read some stuff that, oh no, it's not Manson, it's Manson, okay? It sounds like Manson. When you compare it to, like, Mechanical Animals and some of those slower songs, like, Great Big White World, you hear that similarity. Again, he was a little bit deeper on those albums, and he's a little bit higher here, which normally actually you'll see the flip-flop of that, but it's still very cool. That being said, let's talk, about the lyrics of the song. So I personally, I have them written down here kind of sloppily on this little notebook. So I will be like referring to that and looking back up and looking down. But this is kind of on a very quick, I just, heard this song, let me think about what this might mean. I just read these lyrics, let me think about what it might mean. But I do love analyzing songs, and so I could easily change my mind later on once I get a little bit more time to look into it. But this is what I'm thinking so far, I guess. And art is subjective. If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. I love when people don't agree with me on this kind of stuff, because it shows that art is subjective and you can take different meanings from different things. Yay, art. So, obviously we all know the lines of "as sick as the secrets within." I'm not going to necessarily rehash all the repeats of that, but I'm going to kind of take it section by section as I have it written out in this notebook and talk a little bit about what I think it means. So first and foremost, I think the overall theme is addiction. And before anybody comes at me on that, yes, I do think Manson was an addict. Based on evidence that I have seen, I think he was. I can't say that for certain, but from everything I've seen and read and, related to him, I think it was very clear that he was on drugs. And recreational drug use is drug abuse, and that leads to drug addiction. So, using drugs not for their intended purpose becomes drug abuse. Just saying. So, going into it, I was not expecting it to be about that, honestly. I was expecting it to be more about, the truth coming out kind of a thing, but I absolutely think this is what it's about, personally. So, let's get started here. We're going to, like I said, section by section. There's like 5 sections, so it's not be too long, but this is no longer just my communion. The worms of flesh have turned. With all the sacrifices I swallow, and the blood from the cup is cold. So, I think we're looking at it a little bit first and foremost in the religious Christian kind of way, communion. You drink the blood of Christ. He's sacrificed for you. I think that's kind of an allegory here for this opening line. It's no longer just his communion. It's no longer just his way of feeling good, I think is kind of essentially what we're talking about, because communion is basically when you wash away your sins. At least in my church it was. Granted, I don't go to church anymore, but I do go to church occasionally when my family, when I'm home for the holidays. So, and I do get communion when I do, because I'm Lutheran. So, was Lutheran, I'm not anymore. Anyway, the worms of flesh have turned with all the sacrifices I swallow. I think what he's saying is things have turned because of how much he was using. The more he's used, the more it's turned into not a good thing. And the blood from the cup is cold. Blood obviously was relating to wine. And I'm not saying that like as a necessary like, oh my god, yeah, it's alcohol. Like, I'm just a general thing. But that it's turned cold. It's no longer warmth to him. It's no longer a savior to him. It's become not a help to him, essentially speaking. Let's tuck my hair back there. Then the next little section is, it's not so evil as much as it's hungry. I see these bodies and the bones picked clean. So I think what he's saying here is the drugs aren't evil, but in a metaphorical sense, they're hungry. They want more people to do them. They're roping you in, they're pulling you in. And not even drugs, essentially, drug dealers, I guess, too, where that's what they want, is they want you to be, they're hungry for more people to come to them for relief. And I see these bodies and these bones picked clean. What the drugs have done to other people. What's left after the drugs have ravished a person. An addiction, I guess, in general, has ravaged a person. I built this cage we've been trapped in together. Can't remember where I hid the keys. So what I'm thinking is, he built the cage by starting drugs in the first place, which is a whole other topic, but, whatever. Can't remember where I hid the together. So one of the things that I think is that addiction affects, it's not what I think, I know. Addiction affects more than just the person who's addicted. It affects everyone around them. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at here is, I built this cage that I trapped people in with because I was addicted. I pulled people in with me, and we all became trapped together. Not necessarily in addiction, but in his addiction. and I can't remember where I had the keys. He couldn't find a way out. He couldn't remember how to get out. He couldn't remember how to live without. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully you do. Anyway, a reason for me to get by became a need to get high, then into a life that was no life at all. No life at all. So, this is the line that really got me, like, oh my god, that's probably what this is about. So, I think it's a pretty self-explanatory thing. It started as a reason for him to get by. I think there's there's so much that goes into being a performer in the first place, especially when you're an introverted kind of a person, which is, from my understanding, is how Manson kind of is. So, going into it like that, he started doing drugs to get by as a relief kind of a thing, but then it became a need where he couldn't stop. He had to have them for everything at that point, and then it became just a part of his life. It became his life. He became the addict who had to have these things as not just a need, but to live, he had to have these things. To do anything, he had to have these things. And it became no life at all, because addiction isn't a life. Like, you can't always rely on the addiction forever to get by, because you need to be able to get by without it, you know? There is a trick to get out of your skin. You're only as sick as the secrets within. But the beast is calling for us and slowly assuming control. So, there's a trick to get out of your skin. I think that was what the drugs were for at first, was he'd been told, oh, if you do drugs, you'll feel more confident, you'll feel better about doing certain things, like going out on stage. And that's how you get out of your skin. You'll be out of your comfort zone, and that's how you do it. But you're only as sick as the secrets within, so I don't think he means that necessarily as you're sick. Like, I think that means that the things that you keep inside because you're on drugs, such as addiction, like, people keep addiction hidden sometimes, but also, just in general, hiding your feelings. At a certain point, people become reliant on drugs to deal with emotions. And I think that's what this is saying here. You're only as sick as the secrets within. You're not dealing with the issues that you have. You're not focusing on that. You can't get help when you're keeping it bottled up inside like a secret and coping using drugs. And the beast is calling first and slowly assuming control. Addiction is a beast, and it's an all-consuming one. You fall into it and you can't get out, because it controls everything about you at a certain point once you're so far into it. There's a whole larger conversation to have in regards to addiction that I'm not going to have right now, because I know about addiction, and I know more about addiction than I'd like to necessarily, because I do work in the medical field and I do see addiction frequently at my job, but I'm not going to go into like details on anything or anything like that, because this isn't the time or place. That's a whole separate thing that I'm not going to talk about, because first off, I am not an addiction counselor. I am not entirely fully informed on addiction, but I do have opinions based off of the stuff that I do know about it, and I'm not going to get into it. But yeah, basically it controls you, and everything you do is related to getting high and staying high and keeping yourself in that headspace. And then this next little part, I was never your taxidermy, I'm sewn into your soul, keep sleeping, I'll make you dream of me. So, at first I was really confused about what this could mean, but then I got to thinking, what if it's as if that's the drug talking? I was never just something to look at. I was never just something to touch and walk away from, like taxidermy can be. I'm sewn into your soul. You're never gonna not be an addict once you're an addict. That's the unfortunate fact. Once you become addicted to something, you're always gonna be addicted, even when you fight that addiction, because it's so easy to fall back into patterns. And I think that's what that's saying here is, I'm sewn into your soul. You're never gonna fully get rid of me. You may not take me anymore, and you maybe finally think you're out of that rut, but the second you're exposed to it again, you're falling back in. Kind of a thing. You're gonna relapse. And relapses are perfectly normal. I'm not saying shit about that, okay? Keep sleeping, I'll make you dream of me. Like, keep pretending you don't have an issue with me, but you will dream of me, and you will want me, and you will need me, and you will always think of me in some kind of way. Which is a true thing, because I've heard people who were addicts who have told me that, you know, it's such a consuming thing. I still think about doing them sometimes. I still think about them. Even though I don't do them anymore, I'll still think about, oh, you know, some whatever would be nice. Help me through this issue. I think that's what that's saying. So, I've kind of gone on my little rant. Kind of given you my reasonings. I would love to know what you guys think about the new song. What your thoughts are on not just the way it sounds, but also the lyrics. But yeah, I thoroughly love the new song, and I'm so excited for more Manson music. I'm so excited to see him go on tour. I get to see him in 20 days. Because I live in the middle of buttfuck nowhere where no one starts a tour. So I have to wait. But, you know. But, yeah. So thank you guys for watching. If you did watch to the end, awesome. If you didn't, perfectly fine too. I'm not good at making videos, so this is like my 20th attempt. But, like, yeah, thanks.